IFP number? I do not.
Undercut, but then equally being able to switch off and then manage the tire to the end. And communication between the driver and the engineer is very important because it's flying blind almost. And today it was not only flying blind for the driver, but also for the team.
Okay, Toto, I think we can actually have a look at the coming together of Lewis and Max on that after turn one. What was your take on it?
Yeah, quite some hard racing generally in the first few corners on the straight. I think Lewis had a move on Sebastian, and Sebastian moved to the left, which was a bit harsh. But and then next to each other, side by side. Yeah.
I mean, we saw the damage to the floor that it caused on Lewis's car. He pointed it out when they came in and pulled into the baseball stadium at the end. I mean, you're aware how much that would have been costing him?
No, I wasn't aware. No, I saw him just right now, and he said we had a real damage onto the floor. Did you see it? But the car was already on the podium.
Obviously a great recovery by Bottas as well. He was pushing Vettel all the way towards the end of the Grand Prix, and the boys overnight, they put in a monumental effort, didn't they?
Monumental effort. That car as it was in 1,000 pieces. I'm always surprised how something that looks like 1,000 Lego bits put on the floor can actually race the next day. So a really good effort.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you're the best and you're the champions. But going back to Valtteri, he seems to be in a really good place right now. His confidence in the car, he's really getting the best out of the car, especially in the race.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see how confident and well he races. Actually, he's pushing Lewis hard. They are really benefiting from each other. They look at each other's data, and the team has grown, and the two have grown, and this is exactly the kind of best case you can have between two drivers.
Yeah, it was a good recovery drive after everything that happened in qualifying to Valtteri. Just with regard to Pete Bonington, as we know, he's missing these 2 races, and there was a shout out over team radio, as you'd expect from Lewis Hamilton. I know that there was a little bit of contact, wasn't there, between the pair of them? In the Lewis said he was looking for some advice on setup from Bono, but what about the job that Marcus Dudley did coming in and filling in for him today?
Yeah, first of all, I hope that Bono, you're watching. Again, he has been from the mental part to Lewis's journey and the team's journey. He's doing an unbelievable job, also managing Lewis well. And Marcus took the baton today and ran with it. It was not always easy. But they did a really good job, and Tom, who was assisting him. So it's good to see that we have a strong group of people that can take over, and I just wish that Bono comes back quickly.
It was a 100th victory.
All right, thank you to all of you who've been watching the Formula One race, an exciting finish, and we are following major breaking news impacting millions across Northern California. I-5 is closed in Natomas because of a fire next to the highway. Highway 80, it's closed near the Carquinez Bridge in Vallejo because of a major fire there. A major wildfire in Sonoma County, forcing thousands out of their homes. Historic winds plus extremely dry fuel triggering the largest PG&E power shutoff in state history. Millions of people in the dark today, and they could be without power for days. The governor declaring a statewide emergency today to get extra help. We have a lot to talk about. Walt Gray along with Brandon Ritterman here.
Yeah, thanks, Walt. As you mentioned, I-5 completely shut down now in Natomas from the 80 transition to 90 north of Del Paso Road because of a fire. Our own Giacomo Luca is out there. And Giacomo, what can you tell us about the progress of this fire?
First name's Gary, and last name is Loesch, L-O-E-S.
Little live interview here.
Fire chief of Sacramento Fire Department.
Okay. Do you have a moment? We're about to break in. We're about to break in live, actually, on the air. I'll ask you a couple questions
Same
again.
questions?
If that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello. Sorry about that, everybody. We have a very active situation right now. Right now, I'm here with Sacramento City's fire chief. We're along I-5 at the crossroads of Interstate 80, completely shut down. Visibility is pretty much a zero if you're coming down the highway. That's why crews have had to shut down the highway. And then, of course, some incredibly active burning right now. Chief, talk to me about what the situation looks like and what folks need to know.
Okay, what we have now is we are very fortunate that none of the fire that you see right now is impinging on any kind of buildings or anything. We've had a few autos that were abandoned on the side of the highway here on 5, about a half a mile from our location, that have unfortunately burned up. Right now, we just have heavy smoke in the area. It's being wind-driven by about 40-mile-an-hour winds that are being pushed by gusts of 60. We have approximately 1 mile stretch of Highway 5 and a half a mile stretch of 80 where they intersect, currently shut off. A lot of the fire is in the median, but there's a lot of wood that supports the guardrails, and that's what's burning right now. What citizens need to know is obviously they have to take precautions if they are out and around in the neighboring areas, that it makes it difficult to see through this smoke. I mean, I have lights on mine and I have to crawl. And also for the respiratory system, they should be wearing some type of mask as you are, or if they don't have that, please stay inside their home. And we're getting a handle on this. We have enough resources here. We've drawn a big box around it, and we're stopping it from further spread towards the city of Sacramento right now. The wind is driving in that direction, but we have a good defensive line built, and we're going to be out here probably for the next 4 or 5 hours, mopping this up once we get the fire spread contained, which we're just about at now.
In terms of the time and impact to traffic, 4 to 5 hours possibly?
Yeah, I'm looking at, from my estimation, we have to check every place, as you can see, that's still even burning just slightly. We're going to have to make sure that that's out before we leave here, or else we'll be back in the same situation in night hours. Yeah. So we're looking at about 4 or 5 hours. We'll go as quick as we can, but water is an issue. We have to keep ferrying water into this area. Obviously, we don't have any hydrants up here.
Fortunately, you got crews from pretty much all over the area helping out, right?
Right, yes. Sacramento Fire's here, and then we have West Sac. We have everybody consume this. We have a couple helicopters overhead giving us spot reports. And that's part of the problem here. The fire started in one area, but with this type of wind, we're getting spot fires everywhere. The fire started out up at Advantage. It was actually outside of a industrial structure there, and then it jumped into the median, and now we're chasing it, but we have a good handle on it now.
What's the good news, if we have any?
Well, the good news is nobody's been hurt or injured, and there's no evacuations.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you.
Let you get back to work.
Thank you.
And so you all heard it from Sacramento City Fire Chief. Let's walk down here just so you can see exactly what we're seeing right now. This is not something that we'll see very common in the city of Sacramento. Both Interstate 5 in portions as well as I-80 closed down. But look at this active burning that we're seeing in the shrubs, the beautiful shrubs that call home to Sacramento and line our highways, catching on fire. But these winds are so erratic. I'll tell you what, just moments ago, within the last 20 minutes, it was hard just to walk along the highway because the winds were blowing so quickly. But fortunately, there are lots of firefighters here on the scene, and it looks like they're working very diligently, quickly, to get this fire under control. But of course, with all the winds, the big concern right now is whether or not these fires are going to continue to move south with the winds. Back to you all.
Giacomo, good stuff there. The chief said he's keeping it within a box. So obviously the spread of that hopefully won't happen as it heads towards Sacramento. Giacomo, how many times have you been able to walk up and down an interstate like that and it's like abandoned? It's so odd.
It's very few times that I've ever been able to do this. You know, major accidents, but the first time for a fire like this here in Sacramento.
And Giacomo, as you walk down there, I take a look, and it looks like the grass kind of underneath everything is what's burning. So it's not like we have bigger fuels involved. That's got to be giving firefighters a little bit of help. They're not having those big chunky embers flying around down there. Is the fact that this is a grass fire sort of lending them a little bit of support today?
So really, Brandon, what's happened here is all of that brush, it's actually already been taken, everything underneath. But Randy, follow me over here. I'm not going to get too close, but what's actually burning, the most of the smoke right now is coming from the guardrails, right? These big 4x4s that they've got placed in the middle of the intersection, median to, you know, keep folks safe.
Yeah.
Those are burning right now. But the chief, I asked him about that. I said, obviously, this is going to be a concern for Caltrans coming up in the near future once they get this fire a hold. But they said that essentially they're not really worried about that right now. What they're worried about is containing the fire.
Sure.
And that's where they have all their resources. So they're going to let them burn.
Yeah.
And they're going to get a grip on the fire so it doesn't spread anymore.
Yeah, that dry grass being a flash fuel, but obviously touching some other things as well.
Yeah,
Right.
the oleander there. Okay, Giacomo, we will check back. Kind of looks like the apocalypse a little bit. You know, it's abandoned highway and smoking and all that.
And it's becoming more common. It's not the only closure we've got going on there.
Absolutely. That said, we're following a fire that started about 9 this morning in Vallejo near I-80. The highway is shut down in both directions. It has closed the Carquinez Bridge. This is the video that was coming in. This all started shortly after 9 this morning. CHP officer David Harvey joining us on the phone. David, we talked to you just a couple of hours ago. You were headed to your location. What is your location and what have you seen?
Yes, hi, it's Officer David Harvey, Sloan CHP. I am currently on I-80 eastbound, and we are just now opening the westbound side.
Okay, so westbound. Okay,
eastbound side as well.
Westbound 80 is reopening. You said, correct?
Yes, there is traffic flowing through that now.
What is the condition in terms of flames close to the roadway? Has this been extinguished? Is the damage, the threat to motorists, has that greatly subsided?
So as of right now, the public is safe to drive through. There's no flames on the side of the freeway.
No flames on the side of the freeway.
There's still a lot of wind.
Okay.
Gotcha. We're a little bit scratchy right here, but it sounds like then any concerns people would have had looking at this video that there would be, you know, a threat to bridges has not panned out at this point?
Right. As of right now, there's no threat to the bridge.
Okay. So how about the eastbound 80? That remains closed, Officer Harvey, and when's the estimated time that might reopen?
It is currently closed, but it should be opening back up in about 30 minutes.
30 minutes for eastbound 80 to reopen. That is the best estimate, and westbound 80 is reopened.
Yes.
Okay, that is awesome updated information.
What has been sort of the impact on other roadways? Are people able to get where they need to go? Have you guys had choke points anywhere else that have been caused by this prolonged shutdown that we have, Officer?
At my location right now, I don't know what the impact is. I'll have to look into it.
Okay, Officer Harvey, you're breaking up a little bit, but I think we got some real good updates from you on this. We thank you for linking up with us again. Thank you. Brandon, we talked to Officer Harvey probably about 90 minutes ago. He was just arriving on the scene, and the scene was not good. Obviously, he wasn't at his position yet, but both directions of 80 had closed, and you could see what Vallejo looks like in terms of this was video we got in about 10 o'clock this morning. All that smoke, as you could see it blowing to the right of your screen, was going straight over the Carquinez Bridge. And I heard you talking off air about, obviously, with these structures, would any of the bridges and any of that be compromised?
Yeah, and some of the photos that we saw coming in earlier today, it looked like they may have been involved, and it's good news to hear that they're not having to do anything to structurally repair these bridges or really get engineers out there to take a good hard look for days at the bridge. So that tells you that they don't have anything that they're too overly concerned about. Yeah, you can see the toll plaza.
Yeah, that's the toll plaza. I know you're relatively new to Northern California, but that's a toll plaza at the Carquinez Bridge. Yeah, right. You've been out of town for a little while, but
that's true.
This whole thing. And you look at the flames just to the north of that. So
absolutely wild. And it's one of the stunning things about this whole event that we've got going on right now is we're starting to see things that you're used to seeing out of Southern California with fires burning straight down to the water. As you take a look right there, you can see
Cal Maritime, the university.
Absolutely.
That's the research vessel. That's Cal Maritime, what is now CSU Maritime, formerly known as Cal Maritime Academy, but that's the campus. That's the campus just below the fire line right in here, and then the research vessel. So they were evacuating all the students. They had 200 students, I believe. This is flames surrounding the campus. So they had 200 students they had to evacuate, and there were 1,000 students there on a usual basis. But obviously this weekend with people being out of town, and there's the Carquinez Bridge.
And just down I-80, we've got my former colleague, Anastasia Bolton, who's in Crockett. Hey, Anastasia, what can you tell us about the latest there? It looks like things have calmed down a little bit behind you.
They have, and when Officer Harvey was talking about the reopening of the highway, so take a look. Of course, right now, as we're going live, there it is. There's a car. And the highway, as he mentioned, is being reopened, 2 lanes eastbound and all lanes westbound. So firefighters are cleaning up. I was talking to the fire chief out here just moments ago, trying to understand how many firefighters were here, if he could give me an estimate of the acreage. So he said that between 75 to 100 firefighters responded to this area, and there is about 150 acres that was burned in the town of Crockett, or this area right here. We're near the town of Crockett, and then 140 acres in Solano County, which is the other side of the bridge. Want to understand. I was also talking to a firefighter who responded here, trying to kind of understand if they knew how this caught on fire and how long they've been out here. So he said that they were called out sometime before 10 o'clock in the morning, and I think you guys have mentioned that. And this is what he said in terms of what he believed was the cause of the fire, right? This is preliminary information, but he said that when the fire started in Vallejo, embers, because of the wind, came all the way here and ignited fire on this side of the highway. Now, he said that seems almost unreasonable because how far the embers have to travel. But if you're out here, these gusts of wind, they're quite something. And so based on their experience, I mean, this is unfortunately how the fire travels. And this is why we've been talking all day about the fire danger and the red flag warning and how windy it is out here, which is of course creating this effect of the fires moving and making it a dangerous situation, of course, for the firefighters and the folks who live in these communities.
Yeah, and embers can fly sometimes north of a mile or two in these really high winds, Anastasia. Our viewers are going to remember Crockett for a recent fire that involved a bunch of oil tanks, and I'm wondering, from your vantage point, are you anywhere near that infrastructure? There are big honking oil tanks when you drive through that part of town.
We drove past it in an effort to find this area, but I haven't seen it yet. We are happy to go back and check it out, but we are somewhat close. I would not want to misinform you and tell you how many miles we are, because we're a visiting crew And so still trying to get a lay of the land and figure out how far away we are from point A to point B.
Yeah, all good points. Anastasia Bolton reporting for us, and with the winds being what they are, and obviously going from one point to another with the embers flying, it's not a stretch with the wind gusts that we're seeing that it would jump that far to where she was.
It doesn't have to climb up to anything much taller than grass. You get into some brush, and all of a sudden you've got things that can fly a really far distance right now. We've got fires all over the area right now. We understand Grass Valley's got some action going right now. We're going to come back and check on some more of the breaking news that is hitting as we have millions of people without power, adding just another layer of complexity to this whole incident. We will be right back with more.
All right, I-5 is closed right now in Natomas because of a fire next to the highway. Highway 80 is reopening now. We just heard from Anastasia Bolton, I-80 westbound open. I-80 eastbound is reopening. That is according to Officer David Harvey, who we just had on the horn. And then we're just showing you pictures here of Interstate 5 going in and out here with our Del Paso camera. Obviously, the vacant road is northbound, which would be heading out of Sacramento to the airport on up I-5 northbound towards Woodland and past. And then the southbound traffic, obviously, is heading into Sacramento.
And you can see that smoke just going dead sideways right now.
I'm not sure if this is this a live camera, Sam, or is this something that we're
this
live. Is live, okay. Giacomo's location, obviously, was walking up and down the abandoned road, which we can call abandoned, but still smoking. And as he pointed out, wooden posts for the guardrails. But obviously, the oleander, which is the predominant plant life in the median there.
And most those of nice what pink flowers everyone's used to see.
What was underneath was burning quite a bit before.
Right, and that's the grass crop we've been talking about all year because we had that wet winter. It hasn't been burning as much up until now, but you get these crazy winds that we get in the fall here in California, those Diablo winds coming out of the north. They bring all that dry air with them. You got warmth that's a little bit unseasonable right now, and this is the end result. We can have fire in just about any part of our viewing area, and we are right now just given these high winds.
Yeah, we'll check in with Tracy Humphrey, Monica Woods, who are standing by, getting together all of the weather updates, wind speeds, gusts, and all that. And obviously, what would stop this is rain. And I don't know that within the next 2 weeks we have anything. They'll probably be updating that, but obviously an early rain would be most welcome. We're also hearing now about a fire in the Grass Valley area. Where is it? It's near Sutton Way and Idaho-Maryland Road. The Highway Patrol is saying it is a large fire, and they're asking people to avoid the area. So it just goes on and on and on. And we just had a meeting a little bit ago, Brandon, and we're like, okay, we know about Natomas. We know about what's going on in Vallejo, certainly the Kincade Fire, but between now and the next couple of hours, we're going to have a couple of crews ready to go someplace we don't know about yet.
Well, and here we're now talking about the Sierra foothills, and that's an entirely different environment, right? We've got the sort of scrub brush and oak that we've been seeing in these sort of more coastal ranges. You get up into the Sierras, now we're talking about pines, we're talking about firs underneath those pines, and that is where we have that 100-year fuel problem that we like to talk about in the Sierra, where we have not done a very good job of letting fire do its natural thing, and we've got just basically a big bonfire that's sitting up there ready to burn in a lot of these communities in the Sierra. That is the reason why so much of the Sierra foothills have been part of these blackouts that PG&E has been planning, because they don't want to spark something up there.
All that fuel.
The fact is, they haven't shut down every last little thing, as we've seen some incident reports recently with that Kincade Fire, and other things can cause fires on a day like this. We got wind gusts, 80, 90 miles an hour in some places, and if you get a cigarette butt or a spark in the wrong place, that thing's going to be off and running, and you're not going to be able to do a lot about it.
There you go, like you're seeing here. All right, Tracy, we just teed it up for you. We're talking about the wind gusts.
I know, you guys forgot all about me.
No,
not at all.
We put it on the tee. Let's.
I'm about to say, this is a weather story, right? No, I'm just kidding. No, the weather, this is definitely all about the winds, and the winds are definitely aiding in the opportunity for fire weather development. Here's a look outside toward downtown Sacramento, and the smoke has definitely been moving in. We had the Natomas fire. We're also dealing with the fire in Vacaville, and of course we have the fire in Vallejo. So our air quality is going to be something that we're watching throughout the day today and possibly into tomorrow. It is 7 72 degrees outside, winds out of the north at 29 miles per hour. So we do have some significant winds building into the valley. Also, temperatures more seasonal today. Did you notice the difference? Well, that's the difference a cold front can make. And cooler, drier air filtering in back behind it. 9% relative humidity. We are extremely dry. So from 72 in Sacramento to 72 down in Stockton and Modesto, 70 in Marysville. And look at those cold temperatures in Truckee and South Lake Tahoe, just above freezing, 36 to 37 degrees respectively. So here's a look at the 24-hour temperature change. 14 degrees cooler in Auburn, 10 degrees cooler in Marysville, 16 degrees cooler in Fairfield. So we're cooler back behind the passage of that front, but we also got some gusty winds back behind the passage of that front, and that is the problem. Dry air again from 9% in Sacramento to 11% in Auburn. We're going to be dry for quite some time, and again, take a look at some of the peak wind gusts we've seen. 49-mile-per-hour winds gusting in Sacramento, 64 through the Delta here in Fairfield, 40 in Marysville, 44 in Stockton, 33 in Auburn. Just in case you're wondering, I have some even higher than that. Hillsburg Hill coming in at 93-mile-per-hour winds gusting since midnight. Hawkeye, which is also just near the Hillsburg area, that's 76-mile-per-hour winds gusting. Travis Air Force Base, 64. Yolo Bypass at 51 in Auburn at 33-mile-per-hour winds, again gusting since midnight. Here's a look at the weather timeline. So temperatures are respectively closer to seasonal highs this time of the year. Lower 70s to the mid 60s to the upper 50s coming in 9 o'clock tonight. Take a look at the winds. Winds still out of the north around 22-mile-per-hour winds around 5 o'clock, close to 20 from 6 to 7 o'clock, and that sunset coming in at 6:12. This is our futurecast model. It kind of shows you what we're expecting for some of the higher wind gusts, and I'm using the colors to tell the story. Anytime you see purple, that's winds gusting up to 50. Anytime you see red, that's close to 40. So that tells you the story, right? Foothill locations, winds gusting up to 50 miles per hour, possible around 2:30 in the afternoon. And here on that coastal mountain range, from 40 to 45 mile per hour winds are possible. And then as we move into tonight, take a look at the foothills. Plumas, Sierra, Nevada, Placer counties, you're going to be looking at the opportunity for a significant amount of time, a long duration of time, with the opportunity for winds gusting 50 miles per hour or higher. As we move into Monday morning and Monday afternoon, the winds will finally begin to subside, and unfortunately we will turn our attention to Tuesday, where we could be looking at another wind event. So I tried to break it down for you. So I'm going to go, where are we going to see the strongest winds? What type of winds are we expecting? And I'm really going to do a roundabout for different areas in our viewing area. So Hillsburg, that's very close to where we had the Kincade Fire. Strongest wind time frame from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 7 o'clock tonight. Sustained winds will drop down to around 15 miles per hour, but wind gusts will still be ranging from 20 to 35 miles per hour. For Vallejo, still looking at that time frame from 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Sustained winds there a little bit higher, 30-mile-per-hour winds sustained with wind gusts around 40 to 50 miles per hour. That's going to be until 7 o'clock tonight until those winds die down. Sacramento, of course, we have that fire in the Natomas area. Strongest wind time frame for us, 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock in the evening. Sustained winds around 30 miles per hour with winds gusting from 50 to 55 miles per hour. So we do still have about 2 to 3 more hours to go before winds start to back off. Stockton, from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the evening, you're looking at sustained winds around 25 miles per hour with winds gusting from 40 to 45. And Placerville, near Highway 50 and parts of our foothill locations, you'll see winds gusting up to 35 from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock in the evening. So Wildfire 101, each of these locations have different types of vegetation. For the coastal mountain range, they have heavier trees. For the valley, predominantly grass. And then when you get to the foothills, they have grass, brush, and oak. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but 147 million dead trees are statewide. That is the concern. So again, Wildfire 101. September to October are the worst months for wildfire development. Fall months tend to have more wind. Of course, the Diablo, the Santa Ana winds. Lack of moisture in the vegetation, and the concern is wind-driven fires in grass, especially in steep terrain. That really brings huge problems for evacuation. So bottom line, what to expect? Steady, strong winds all day long for today. The timing also running through early Monday morning. Down trees, power lines, possible outages, your Halloween decorations. they're probably gone, right? So here's a look at that high wind event. Again, still in effect until 11 o'clock tonight. And again, we do have that red flag warning in effect until 11 a.m. on Monday. We'll finally start to see those winds starting to back off a bit, and we'll see improving conditions. But again, after that Tuesday, we could have another significant wind event. Temperatures are close to more seasonal highs and actually cooler than average as we move into Wednesday and Thursday. And then the 70s are rounding out the forecast as we head into the weekend. Brandon and Walt, it is going to be a busy day, but I think we did a pretty good job of breaking it down when those gustiest winds come in. And it looks like right now, much of our viewing area still got a long way to go.
Yeah, indeed. We're not out of the woods in so many ways, right? Tracy, you pretty much covered it all for us. Thank you so much for that extra effort. All right, you're watching live continuous breaking news coverage here on ABC 10. For Brandon Rittiman, I'm Walt Gray.
Yeah, and we are tracking our largest current wildfire, which is the Kincade Fire in Sonoma County. Latest update from CAL FIRE shows that we're at 30,000 acres, 79 buildings destroyed, many of them homes. We also know that wineries have been involved as well. We've got 90,000 people plus forced to evacuate, more that are on standby to do so. Arlena Howland is out there. I saw you on Twitter talking about structure protection, and it sounds like, you know, we're only under 80 buildings that have been lost at this point, Lena, but there's a concern there could be a lot more in harm's way.
Yeah, there is right now. We just spoke with some CAL FIRE officials out here. We are, just to give you a little bit of a perspective of where we are at right now, we are in the community of Windsor. We are right next to the Foothill Regional Park, which butts up to a very large residential area. Obviously, all of this area is under a mandatory evacuation order. They got out of here yesterday. But right now, firefighters are working on structure protection. A CAL FIRE official just told me they are going to work to save everything that they possibly can, but they're up against some pretty tricky conditions. We're still seeing some wind out here. We're seeing a lot of flying embers. We were driving to get into this neighborhood off of Vinecrest Road, and as we were driving in, we saw fire trucks on every single road that we were on. We did see a few of them starting to spray water on some of the homes. That may be just a preventative measure. We haven't seen any active flames out here in this neighborhood right next to the Foothill Regional Park in Windsor. Again, what you're looking at right now, I'm having my photographer Victor kind of pan around to show you what I am seeing. We're just off of Vinecrest Road right now. We are seeing some of those fire crews take off. They just filled up with some water. They're going deeper into these residential neighborhoods just to check and see if these houses are okay. And they're also staging in front of these houses to be there just in case they do catch fire. There is a major concern for this residential area. We are next to the Foothill Regional Park. We are off of Vinecrest Road. This is the prime area where a lot of firefighters have set into work on a lot of structure protection right now. This is a key area of the fire. If you can look over here where my photographer Victor is pointing his camera over to, that is some of the burn area. We are in a residential area. You can see it burned right up against that park over there. You can see some of the black land. And then over here on this side, we're right up against some houses right here. So we're literally just one street away from houses. That's how close the fire has come to a lot of these houses in this residential area in Windsor. So we're going to kind of keep moving through this neighborhood and see what we can find and see these firefighters in action. I've honestly seen firefighters from all over the state of California. Right when we arrived here on Vinecrest, we saw some fire crews from Anaheim here working on that structure protection, just to give you an idea of the amount of crews and where they are coming from. They're coming from all over the state. So that's what we have out here right next to the Foothill Regional Park in Windsor. Firefighters are working on that structure protection. They're working to save as many structures as they possibly can. So for right now, I'm going to toss it back over to you guys.
Yeah, and for those not familiar with Windsor, you're just due north of Santa Rosa on 101. Is it your sense that the fire that burned that little patch of hill right next to you, is that just one spot and the kind of thing that's happening in neighborhoods all up and down 101 right now?
I believe so. Again, we're not seeing any active flames, so this might just be one small little patch of what is a 30,000 acre fire.
Right. Yeah, those spot fires are really what we're worried about, because these fires can jump, sort of a mile at a time. So it sounds like they're scrambling. But it seems like you have a good amount of fire engines, fire trucks in the area there. I mean, is it kind of one per house right now, one per block? Yep. What would you say, like, sort of the level of response is in that particular neighborhood?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, we have seen at least one crew per block in this neighborhood right next to the Foothill Regional Park. That's how big of a concern this area is. At least one on every block. And then on the block like we are on right now, right behind me, I can count. We see 3 fire trucks all in this one neighborhood right behind me.
All right, Lena Howland out in Windsor, thank you very much for the update. We'll check back with you in just a little bit. The one of the positive things about this, Walt, is we've known for a while that we have this fire coming, and getting all those structure protection crews in place is key, because you can't scramble them quite that fast. You are looking right now at pictures of the iconic Soda Rock Winery in Healdsburg. That has burned in this fire. We had Carlos Herrera there this morning as the flames were racing through these historic buildings. It's not too long ago. We only have to think back a couple of years to when we were losing wineries in Sonoma County. And man, Sonoma County is just really having it rough these last few years with these fire seasons.
Indeed.
This is a place that means a lot to a lot of people.
Yep, that went down. Carlos was there, still smoldering this morning, and PG&E is turning off power to 940,000 customers across the state because of this extremely high fire danger. Here's PG&E's outage map. Each dot shows where the shutoffs are. PG&E started turning off power last night, and they're telling people to be prepared for it to be dark for at least 48 hours. This is PG&E's biggest preventive shutoff ever. Now, keep in mind, a customer isn't just one person. It could be a home. 3 or 4 people live in the home. An apartment, a business, which means millions of people right now are without power.
And it depends on the area that's shut down, but you can roughly do ×3. So you're closer to 3 million people is what you're talking about when you're getting close to 1 million customers. That's 3 million human beings who are without power right now, many of whom wanted to enjoy their weekend. All right, PG&E telling people to prepare to be without power, as we said, for at least 48 hours. They are getting some extra help from the state and from other utility companies across the country. They have mutual aid agreements in place for this sort of thing. They inspect and repair damage during shutoffs like this, and they're hoping that that's going to help them speed up the process of getting the power switch back on. Remember, the whole point is to avoid having sparks. You don't want to just flip it back on. If a tree's hit a power line, you got to go out and look and make sure stuff is safe to turn back on, and that is why we have to deal with these outages for days at a time sometimes.
Absolutely. We're also following a fire that started at 9 this morning in Vallejo near I-80. Actually, right along I-80. The highway was shut down in both directions, closing the Carquinez Bridge for like 4 hours. I-80 was closed in both directions. CHP Officer David Harvey joined us on the phone, and he just updated us on all this. What he told us maybe 15 minutes ago, I-80 westbound is now open, and that eastbound 80 was about to reopen. Very well could have reopened at this point. If not, eastbound 80 will be reopening shortly. But obviously the backup was immense for 4 hours from the Carquinez Bridge on either side, going back, figure 4 hours worth of stoppage.
Yeah, and it's pretty much named a major highway, and it's had a shutdown at some point somewhere along the way during this. That is how widespread the fires have been in our viewing area today.
And there again is the toll plaza that we talked about a little bit earlier. You see how close the flames are coming to that, and obviously cars still going through, and a backup starting as you approach to pay, and then you're trying to leave. And so obviously once CHP and other officials saw this, they're like, all right, we're going to let these cars through, and we're going to stop. We're going to stop this, because obviously with the smoke and the flames burning right up to the highway, the Cal Maritime Academy, that's what it used to be called officially.
You're looking at now.
That's it. The flames are burning right down to the water, where it now, this Cal State University Maritime, as it's called, you see the research vessel, theirs, and the flames are burning right down to those buildings, which is Cal Maritime Academy. And people were, there were 100, 200 students evacuated today. The regular enrollment is about 1,000. There are the buildings, and you can see the surrounding flames. We were told by one person who's connected to the Maritime alumni that 2 cars she had heard were on fire. But obviously, look at that. I mean, if that, we haven't gotten an update.
It looks really bad for the bridge, but the good news we got from CHP was no vital damage to the bridge.
Right. Okay, we're also told, and I think your colleague, Ms. Bolton, was in Crockett. There was a fire burning there. I believe that situation has been handled. And so we're going to continue to get an update on that. I believe the fire in Crockett has been handled. It was 150 acres. Evacuations there.
Spotted maybe from this one.
Yeah, the evacuations there have been lifted. So at least there's good news there. Okay, Tracy, we're calling you back up here. We're calling you back. What can you tell us about, are you on the traffic map or are you doing the weather map? What are you looking at?
We're going to do a little bit of traffic. So we're going to kind of give you information what's going on near Vallejo, and then we're going to circle back and take a look at the backup near Natomas because of that fire. So here we go. We'll start things off and move over to where we do have the Carquinez Bridge and where we were having a whole lot of slow going. Right now, I'm showing that 80 westbound is open. You see all that green there moving. You see a little bit more yellow, more slow going if you're 80 eastbound headed in toward the Vallejo area. There was a little bit of a backup coming in through 680, and that's for people that were headed southbound coming into Martinez. I would imagine they were probably using that as an alternate, and that's why you're seeing the backup there. Also some red coming into 780 rather, if you're going to be headed eastbound through Benicia. They were also looking at some slow going. If you wanted to take an alternate like 37 moving in through Sonoma and then eventually dipping down into Novato, you can see that's moving nicely. A lot of green there with that moving to the westbound area. And then here we go. Now we have a completely different story. So we do have that fire that was just off of the freeway there near Del Paso and the Natomas area. Look at all the green that you see there. Interstate 5 north and southbound, we're seeing slow going. And now 80 westbound and eastbound, you're seeing slow going as well, going into that junction and that turn that eventually dips down into downtown. So if you are headed toward the airport, if you have any type of travel plans today, you want to make sure you stay well abreast of that because we have slow going all the way from that junction coming in to 5 northbound before you dip off and again connect a little bit closer to where we have the airport. And we also have slow going coming in 80, and that's 80 eastbound before you even get to the downtown connection there. So a lot of traffic in our area. Even Davis showing some slow going as well, especially if you're going to be headed westbound towards San Francisco. So busy traffic wise, especially with all the different weather scenarios that we have across the area.
All right, thank you, Tracy, for tying that all together. That's, traffic, Brandon, traffic was almost as big a story as the fires once you shut down 80 in and around the Carquinez Bridge. And then we had the situation in Natomas, which Giacomo Luca is standing by. We'll get more from him. I-5 north of Sacramento shut down in both directions due to fire there. So let's update folks right now on the grass fire situation. We have breaking news, and we're going to get to that with some information. Current wildfire, obviously we've been talking about the Kincade. This is near Sutton Way in Grass Valley. This probably about, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes ago.
Getting our first still pictures in here to the newsroom right now of this fire. And you can see right there, you've got a little bit of what appears to be some crowning out of the grass in Grass Valley and getting up into trees. This is near Sutton Way and Idaho, Maryland Road, excuse me. The Highway Patrol saying it is a large fire. They're asking people to avoid the area. We're following that fire for you as well right now. This is a big concern because the Sierra foothills are a different beast than what we've been seeing in the Kincade fire. And if you get a fire that gets up into the crown of these trees in these high winds that we've been telling you about all day long, that can be a real problem. So you really want to get a jump on fires when you get them in the Sierra foothills, where you have this sort of mixed conifer forest. So you got oaks right alongside the pine trees, and of course the firs that have really crept in and replaced the pines in a lot of places. So we've had crews up in the Grass Valley area Thursday morning, Friday morning, and they had power shutoffs to do their best to avoid these situations. But obviously, Brandon, as you well know from covering all this, you can shut off all the power you want, but that may reduce the risk of fire by what? 10, 20%? We don't even know. Well, it's like playing the lottery, right?
Right, exactly.
What's the thing that's going to start the fire this day? We know it's not lightning. That pretty much rules out natural causes, by and large. If you don't have lightning in the area, then you're looking at human causes. And that can be anything. That can be innocent. Somebody has a chain dragging behind a truck. That can be somebody being stupid and flicking cigarette butts out on a day like this, which is absolutely the wrong thing to do. It could be, any number of things. The reality is, we need everybody's help to avoid having starts right now, not just PG&E,
Right.
Which has problems all its own right now.
Which you've pointed out.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take you to I-5, which is completely shut down in Natomas, from the 80 transition to 99 north of Del Paso Road because of a fire. Okay, the vacant roadway closest to you on the screen is northbound Interstate 5 as you'd be heading towards the airport, as you'd be headed out of Sacramento towards Woodland and points north.
Skyline way in the background there.
Yep, and then you see the traffic heading into Sacramento. And the median, as off into the distance, which is still smoking, is less smoky now than it was an hour ago. Giacomo Luca is there. He's gathering new information. Now, you see the people who are diverting. So this is the traffic that's headed into Sacramento, and it's really not moving at all, and it hasn't been moving for about 2 hours.
Yeah, and Giacomo showed us on his live shot a little bit ago that those posts that hold up those guardrails were actually on fire because of the grass that had been burning around them. And you know, having been on scene at wildfires, if you got logs lying around, they'll be smoking for days after something, you know, that's ripped through. So it's nice to see that dying down at this point, but obviously we're not quite ready to get I-5 opened again at this stage. But the good news, it looks like the main fire itself, they've got a relatively good handle on, as we were hearing from Sacramento Fire earlier today as well. So hopefully we can get I-5 taken care of, and they can cross that one off the list for now, as we've been having problems on highways all around the area. Fires right next to roads.
Yeah, Giacomo had the chief on, Chief Lush, and he was saying that, look, they had a box around this fire to keep it from spreading into the downtown Sacramento proper. The winds were trying to push it that way, so they got a relatively good handle on it right away. It was initially a 2-alarm fire, and we were concerned. We had gotten reports. We were having a news meeting a little bit ago that there could have been a couple of homes, 2 or 3 homes involved in this. And I believe we're showing you another. Okay, this is video from earlier. This is the I-5 area where this I believe could be the median or just off of the highway where it was smoking really good.
And to be clear, the chief did confirm no buildings lost.
Right.
So that was really good news. And you know, it is a little bit of like a good news, bad news situation when you're dealing with these grass fires. The bad news is it's grass. It burns really fast. It's a flash fuel. So these things can just absolutely run. If the wind's going, 50 miles an hour, the fire's going 50 miles an hour, and there's not much to stop it from doing that. The good news, though, is it's not throwing massive embers as long as it's not spreading into an area that has thicker fuel than the grass. So it seems like we've had crews have a pretty good handle on getting around this thing before it spread into anything heavier fuel-wise, be that buildings, be that some of the thicker brush that could be on outlying areas around here. So again, we're really hoping to see I-5 flowing again in both directions, but they want to make sure they've gotten to the hot spots they need to get to before they just open this thing back up and have people in trouble. We did hear, however, the chief telling us that some cars burned, and I think we're looking at a little bit of video of that. Some people had to abandon their cars in the thick of this. And that's not terribly surprising. You talk about flame lengths is what firefighters will call it, and that's literally just the length of the flame. With grass, you don't expect it to be too crazy high, but when you've got these really big wind gusts, it can get out ahead of it, pretty heavily, and you can torch cars in a road with just grass if you got enough of it on fire. And it seems that is what happened to some folks who had to leave their cars. They lost them in this fire.
How scary is that, though? You're in there and your traffic's not moving. The flames are headed towards you. I mean, your only play is to let's get out of the car and run. And that could have been very well the situation that these people were in. You referenced the chief and talking about when northbound I-5 may reopen. When we talked to Giacomo Luca, which was probably about 30 minutes ago, the chief live said it would be 4 to 5 hours before northbound I-5 would be reopened again. That's what he speculated. So if you are headed north on 5, if you're trying to catch a flight, okay, you got a problem right now.
Yeah,
because you're going to be rerouted at the Arena Boulevard exit, I believe, and you got to think that is completely jammed right now. So if you have, say, a 7 p.m. flight, 8 p.m. flight, you may want to get in your car now, and you may want to get in line, because it doesn't look like this northbound I-5 section is going to be reopened till possibly 5 or 6 p.m. based on the chief's timeline from a half an hour ago.
And you can look at these pictures and go, hey, why is that so if it doesn't look so crazy active right now? As the chief was explaining to us earlier, they're having to truck water in. It's not like there are fire hydrants all up and down I-5 everywhere you could possibly go. So they're having to platoon back and forth to where they can get water, bring it up here, put it on these hot spots, and until they've got a fair amount of confidence that they've got all those hot spots doused, they're not going to want to reopen this thing because the winds are high today. And if you leave something on the ground that's smoldering, it can very easily throw an ember or two in the wrong spot. Then you're off and dealing with the same problem all over again. Nobody wants that. So as inconvenient as this is, it's just going to be a matter of time while we wait. This is not the kind of thing they're going to be flying, helicopters and tankers in when we've got houses that need protecting somewhere else. So you got to basically wait on the old-fashioned. It's not really a bucket brigade, but it's a bucket brigade of trucks right now. Is
Close
basically
enough.
what they're going to have to work to get I-5 back open.
Okay, there's our Caltrans camera. Again, the northbound lane is closed, heading out of Sacramento, headed up towards Woodland and the airport, and heading into town, you see the backup of traffic on I-5 heading into Sacramento due to the fire that started just a couple of hours ago.
All right, welcome back to live breaking news coverage from ABC 10. We are following news that is hitting millions of people all over Northern California today. As we were just talking about, if you're just joining us, I-5 is closed in Natomas because of a fire next to the highway. 80 was closed near the Carquinez Bridge in Vallejo because of a major fire there. It looked pretty bad for the bridge. Fortunately, the bridge not damaged, and those lanes are back open right now. We also got that major wildfire out in Sonoma County that's forced thousands of evacuations. We've got historic level winds in California, extremely dry fuel, and low humidity right now, which has triggered PG&E to make the largest power shutoff in state history. We're talking about roughly, give or take, 3 million people who are going to be without power today and could be without it for a matter of a couple of days. The governor declared a statewide emergency earlier today to get extra help. We have a whole lot to get to today.
Okay, we're going to take you now back to I-5, that backup there that's affecting traffic in and out of Sacramento, I-5 north of town. Giacomo Luca walking along an abandoned I-5 northbound with the very latest on them putting out the hot spots behind you. Giacomo.
Yeah, that's right, Walt. There are firefighters right now working to put out, doing some mop-up work. It is very windy outside. That's obviously what led to the conditions that we just saw about a couple of hours ago that led to I-5 as well as portions of I-80 being shut down here in Sacramento. And as you can see, from where we're standing right now, about a mile stretch on I-5, about half a mile stretch on 80 shut down. It looks like a ghost highway. That's not something that we see very often, but fortunately, at least from the conversation that we had with Sacramento City Fire Chief about half an hour ago, no people hurt and at least no homes in the path of that fire just yet. But we do know, and I don't know if Randy can point over this direction, there's a couple of cars off the side of the highway. There's the ones closest to us, and then there's the ones that are just a couple of specks about half a mile from where we're standing. People had to leave their vehicles and flee because their vehicles caught on fire, and the traffic was backed up so bad that they decided that the safest thing to do was to get out. And that's, again, according to the Sacramento City Fire Chief. An unfortunate situation, but with these winds ripping like they are right now, that is going to be, unfortunately, the situation that folks are going to be dealing with at least for the next 4 to 5 hours as crews here work to mop this up. Walt?
So, Giacomo, I'm seeing traffic passing by you. Is that traffic that is headed north towards the airport, or are they starting to let some cars go? What is that traffic that you're seeing?
So, that traffic was actually, we're in the northbound lanes, and those vehicles are going south. The black one, that black Tahoe over there, that's the chief's car. So I'm guessing the Jeep behind it is maybe a firefighter or maybe someone that lost their way. Not quite sure about that, but those are definitely folks working the incident right now. Traffic still in the area, closed down at this point.
Yeah.
Wow.
You got to have a pretty good excuse to get the chief escort the wrong way down I-80.
Exactly. Must be somebody Pretty important on that. All right, Giacomo, as they continue to mop up the hot spots there, we will visit with you again. Obviously, not only was fire the big story there, but the traffic stoppage on I-5 in both directions heading out of Sacramento. And then obviously the Carquinez Bridge 80 situation has now rectified itself, where that was shut down in both directions due to the fire in Vallejo, which got really nasty.
If you had asked me based on the pictures which one was going to be open first, I would not have guessed this was the way things are going, but that's the way it is. It's going to be a few hours for I-5 stuff.
Absolutely. Okay, Tracy is checking in now. Tracy has an update on the, you've been talking about the wind gusts, Tracy, and obviously that's a huge story. Not just the sustained winds, but how the MPH of the gusts.
Yeah, the MPH of the gusts. I like that, Walt. So here's a look out toward our live camera, and I think that pretty much sums it up. Can you see how it's kind of bobbing and weaving there? The opportunity for a very significant wind gust still remain in the forecast through this evening as well as much of tonight. It is 74 degrees outside, 9% humidity. Take a look at winds. North to northeast winds coming in around 25 miles per hour. We do have the opportunity for winds gusting as high as 50 miles per hour here in the Sacramento area well through this evening. So temperatures have cooled down back behind the passage of a cold front, much cooler than what we had yesterday. 14 degrees cooler in Auburn now, 20 degrees cooler in Fairfield, and we're also still extremely dry. So even though temperatures have cooled down, the fire threat is still going to be there, and here's why. Take a look at some of those peak wind gusts we've had today. 49 mile per hour winds gusting in Sacramento, 64 in Fairfield through the Delta, 45 in Santa Rosa, 40 up in Marysville, and of course the opportunity for very significant winds are still in the forecast for the remaining portion of the evening. So I even have some winds higher than what you just saw. Now these are some of the highest wind gusts we've had since midnight. Hillsburg Hills coming in at 93 miles per hour. Hawkeye, which is also in that same area, 76 miles per hour. Travis Air Force Base at 64 miles per hour. Yolo Bypass at 51 miles per hour. And Auburn coming in at 33 mile per hour wind gusts. Here is a look at the weather timeline. So temperatures are closer to more seasonal highs for this time of the year. The lower 70s coming in around 4 to 5 o'clock in the evening, but you can still see that winds will still be an issue. North to northeast winds coming in around 23 around 5 o'clock in the evening. Winds finally starting to let off later on tonight, and then temperatures cooling down to the upper 50s. So here is a look at our futurecast. It is based on model data, one of my favorite graphics for this particular wind event, and here's why. All of the different colors that you see here, and I really need to point it out for you. Anytime you see a little green and yellow, those are winds around 20 to 25 miles per hour. If you're seeing a little orange, that's close to 30 miles per hour. If you're seeing a little red running into a little purple, that's around 40 miles per hour. And if you're seeing nothing but purple, that's close to 50 mile per hour winds gusting. That tells the story. So the more significant and the deeper the color, pretty much the more significant the winds. Take a look at this. Through Truckee, Auburn, South Lake Tahoe, in the higher terrain, you can see around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is currently now, winds can be gusting as high as 50 miles per hour. Once you take a look at the coastal mountain range, closer to around 30 to 35 mile per hour winds in that area. As we move into later on tonight, the winds kind of back off for the coastal hills, but what about the foothills? Yeah, they're just getting started. You can see that purple extending all the way up to Plumas County, all the way through Placer County, and then running down into Sonora. That is the opportunity for winds gusting of at least 50 miles per hour for our foothill locations, and still the opportunity really into the overnight. And then finally those winds begin to subside. Finally we see some improving conditions, and that will be throughout the day Monday, when we will be left with winds a little more reasonable for this time of the year. So with the windy conditions, I wanted to break it down for you kind of area by area. Hillsburg, which is where we do have the Kincade Fire, strongest winds are expected to be extended well into 7 o'clock tonight. How strong will they be? Well, sustained winds around 15 miles per hour, but some of those higher wind gusts could veer as high as 20 to 35 miles per hour. For Vallejo, where they're dealing with that fire and where they had the closure of the Carquinez Bridge, their winds could be gusting as high as 40 to 50 miles per hour until 7 o'clock tonight. And also, how about for Sacramento? So we just saw Giacomo out there dealing with what was left over with Interstate 5 closures near Natomas. They're looking at winds gusting from 50 to 55 miles per hour. That will be coming in around 5 o'clock o'clock in the evening. Sustained winds around 30 miles per hour. And then for Stockton, strongest wind time frame until 6 o'clock this evening. Sustained winds around 25 miles per hour. But those winds are still going to be gusting 40 to 45 miles per hour until 6 o'clock this evening. And last but not least, Placerville. So I did want to get those foothill locations in there because they got a whole lot of purple going on until later on tonight. Those winds could be gusting up to 35. Again, that's until 5 o'clock this evening. But of course, with some of the higher terrain and the higher elevations, you could always see some extenuating wind gusts a lot more than that. So Wildfire 101, this is my attempt at breaking it down. We do have numerous areas that are included in our red flag warning, and each one is a little bit different. They have different types of vegetation and they all burn differently. So with that, the coastal mountain range, heavier trees. For the valley, mostly grass. And then for the foothills, they have a little bit of everything, grass, brush, as well as oak, which burns very quickly. And all in all, 147 million dead trees statewide. Those are some of the things firefighters have to contend with some of those wildfires. Now, September into October is traditionally some of the worst months for wildfire development. Now, that is excluding the last 3 years, where we had the Carr Fire and the Camp Fire and the Mendocino Complex Fire. But our fall months tend to have a little bit more wind. That's why we have those Diablo winds driving in, lack of moisture coming in, and that's also, again, the concern when you have very significant winds. Wind-driven fires can be so easily out of control, especially in steep terrain. So the opportunity for evacuations are minimal at best when you start getting a really fast wind-driven fire and some, again, those more highly elevated locations. So what to expect? Steady, strong winds all day. The timing, again, also through Monday morning, down trees, power lines, and power outages. Anything around your home you need to secure? Now's the time to do that. So the high wind warning in effect until 11 o'clock tonight. Winds gusting as high as 60 miles per hour. The areas we're most concerned about, they're shaded in pink here. That's parts of the Sierra foothills through the valley. And again, even on the western edge of our valley locations there. And then also for that red flag warning, that's in effect until 11 a.m. on Monday. And again, that pretty much tells the story. If you do live in any of these red shaded areas, we are asking that you do have an evacuation plan in place for you as well as for your family. This particular wind event expected to be over around 11 o'clock on Monday morning, but we are gearing up for another wind event that could be coming in for Tuesday. Here's a look at some wind damage that we had in the Natomas area. This is sent in by Karen Chan. She said a tree actually fell from her neighbor's yard into her yard. And does that not sum it all up? Yeah, so we'll see again the opportunity for plenty of trees that could be downed across the area. And here's another look at another huge tree coming in from the Fairfield Fire Department. That one's quite significant. It kind of, I think, tells a story as far as how gusty some of these winds have been. You have to be safe. You know, if you're actually in one of those, if you're near one of those particular rooms when that happens, you could put yourself in imminent danger. And this is the Soda Rock Winery. This is in the Sonoma County area. This was taken by one of our reporters, Carlos Herrera. Pretty much kind of lets us know they did not fare very well with that particular fire. Again, the Kincade Fire continues to grow as the opportunity for gusty winds will remain in the forecast through this evening as well as into tonight. If you have a particular photo that tells a story of what's happening where you are, if you have any downed trees or power lines you would like to share with us, please send it to us at weatherforce@abc10.com. You can also text us, so please use the number 916-321-3310. So I mentioned the Kincade Fire. Here it is right here in Santa Rosa. That's the smoke associated with it. It is kind of pushing off to the southwest a bit into Guerneville and just outside of Santa Rosa. Again, that fire continues to grow. The Kincade Fire right now around 30,000 acres. The percent contained just 10%. And we also have another fire that's just outside the Chico area. That is the Rawson Fire. That one did begin earlier today. It is 605 acres. It is 50% contained, and that one's in Tehama County. In addition to that, with all the smoke, we got some air quality issues. You can see basically the red and the orange here coming in outside of Vacaville, and a little bit more unhealthy air quality coming in near Stockton and Modesto. If you do have upper respiratory concerns, of course, you should limit your time outside. That red flag warning in effect until 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. And let's talk about temperatures. They're cooler than average, lower 70s Monday and Tuesday with the upper 60s for afternoon highs for Wednesday. Walt and Brendan, I know we're talking about this particular wind event, but we're going to be watching what could be coming in for Tuesday as well. For people who have power outages, you could have another round of outages in just a couple of days.
Yeah, so we're into this for a while. I mean, obviously that's your message. We may get a short break, but we're now looking at Tuesday before we can exhale.
Exactly. And, I always think about kids. Are they going to school? Am I going to have to take off work? You know, all these other things you have to do to prepare your family for these power outages.
Yeah, you had a lot of good visuals, too, with fences down, trees down, and just the general havoc that this wind is wreaking on all of us. Tracy, thank you. Looking forward to your next update. In the meantime, more breaking news. We're hearing now about a fire in the Grass Valley area. Here are some images. Sutton Way near Idaho-Maryland Road. CAL FIRE tells us it's 8 acres. It is still burning. It started at about 1:30. The Nevada County Sheriff's Office says no evacuations yet on this one, but they want people to be paying attention just in case. And they're asking people to avoid this area where the fire is burning as they work to get a handle on it. But again, relatively fresh. It's about an hour and 45 minutes old.
All right, and we were just talking with Tracy about this idea of another round of heavy wind coming in. PG&E is now saying that customers need to be ready on Tuesday and Wednesday for a possible third round of these shutoffs in 32 counties. So this is another possible multi-million people event being without power. And this caught my eye as Butte County was telling people on Twitter, if you get your power restored, that's the time to try to recharge any medical equipment, your cell phones, that sort of thing. But I mean, that's an if. The if is what caught my eye because we are talking about possible 48 hours without power, from this weekend headed into Tuesday. If you're looking at another shutoff on Tuesday, that could be a very narrow window for a lot of people. And you got to think people are making some plans to go visit relatives somewhere else or something.
Well, yeah, your backup plan, people have been through this before, but that's amazing. You may have an hour or two. It's like charge in, get your batteries plugged in. You binge on your Netflix show while you can. You just don't know what could possibly be next. Okay, you are watching continuous coverage here, breaking news on ABC 10. Walt Gray, Brandon Ritterman standing by for you as we continue to bring you all the fires, all the traffic backups, and everything that's gone along with what we knew was going to be a major wind event throughout Northern California. Okay, where did the action 9 a.m.? We'll take you there now. It was Vallejo. This started, as we mentioned, in the Vallejo-Carquinez Bridge area near I-80. That highway was shut down in both directions at about 10 a.m. or so. The Carquinez Bridge was closed. Why? Because all the flames, as you can see, this was a neighborhood in Vallejo, all the flames were coming right up to I-80, right near that toll plaza, right near the Carquinez Bridge. I'm sure many of you, if you need an identifiable landmark, that certainly would be it, as we're looking at all the smoke that was over Vallejo, and this was a real serious situation. Also involved in this, besides General Vallejo and along I-80, which was closed in both directions, was Cal State University Maritime. Many of you know that as Cal Maritime Academy. That was evacuated. These are the hills just above Cal Maritime. About 200 students on this day, Sunday, were ordered to get out of campus. The school has about 1,000 students. It's been there since 1929, 1930, as we pan down, showing you the hills of Vallejo. And we're going to get a shot here as we pan and zoom right into I-80. This is how close all the smoke. You see the vehicles.
Right on the shoulder.
This right there. I mean, and this
There's
is
the toll plaza shot.
There's the toll plaza shot that we were referencing. And look at the flames. I mean, they're only stopping because it hit road. So all the foliage and dry brush and everything that you know from driving up and down 80, everything's brown, everything is super dry. And what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, a fire with about 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So this is what happened today along Interstate 80, just a nasty situation. And Brandon, you were covering this, 2 weeks ago, where they had the situation where the road was shut down then, too.
We were all paying attention to those gas tanks on the other side of the Carquinez Strait in Crockett. You're looking at the CSU facility, CSU Maritime.
There's the research vessel, and you see the flames. I mean, they can't get any closer to the school than they are right now. We talked to a gal, Angela, who is connected to the Cal Maritime Alumni Association, and she said she was setting up places where the students could go, where they could get food, housing, or whatever. And she said that she had heard that a couple of cars on campus had burned. But obviously, you see, this is quite the landmark as we pull out a little bit. There were buildings and the last update we got, Brandon, was probably I'm guessing a little bit after noon, maybe 1 o'clock. So I don't know, and I haven't gotten any new video as to how much of Cal Maritime was actually burned.
That wide shot there, though, it almost looks like the bridge is involved, and thankfully that was not the case. There's no damage to the bridge. We were talking to CHP about that earlier today. They were able to get both sides now, it appears, of I-80 open, both directions, which is great news because that is a choke point nobody wants to see go at any particular point. But we do understand that this fire did spot across the strait, jump the water that the bridge spans and over into Crockett. And we were talking about, it wasn't all that long ago that we had those oil tanks on fire there. My former colleague Anastasia Bolton is visiting us from Team Tegna. She's out of Houston, and she is in Crockett for us today, has been watching a spot fire there, and it sounds like they've gotten a relatively good handle on the spot fire over there. Anastasia looks relatively calm behind you, but was there ever a threat or a concern about that fire spreading into all that oil infrastructure there?
Right, and so, let's kind of just start rolling a video that we shot earlier as we're driving from Vallejo to across the bridge to Crockett. So as firefighters were telling me that, and you've mentioned this already, that they believe that the ambers from Vallejo blew over into the Crockett area, and that's how this side of the bridge and this sort of side of the highway caught on fire. They say it is very preliminary information. However, it is possible because of the strength of the winds there. There are dozens of firefighters from multiple agencies. What you're looking at are cleaning up the fire, because by the time we got here, the fire that started around 10 o'clock in the morning was almost under control. And so firefighters are telling me that they are going to be here overnight, making sure that there are no flare-ups. And if you bring it back live to me near the town of Crockett, as you mentioned, Brandon, it looks as if they do have it under control. But as you know firsthand from covering the fires in California, that this situation could change at any minute. So that's why they're going to babysit this overnight. 4 different fire departments are at least on this side of the highway near Crockett. We were told 20 to 30 homes were evacuated earlier today, but now that evacuation has been lifted. On this side of the highway alone, and you can't really see all of them working, but at this point, just the small contingent of firefighters is here. But at the height of the blaze, there were approximately 75 to 100 firefighters at this spot alone. And you guys were talking about that explosion that you had at the storage facility not even 2 weeks ago. So follow me here. You'll hopefully see the storage tanks in the distance. Behind those storage tanks is that facility, the New Star Energy storage facility that was on fire on October 15th. So not those tanks like really over them, that were 5 miles away from that. At the time of that explosion, people were told to shelter in place, and eventually that fire, of course, was put out and the restrictions were lifted. But it is impossible really to imagine what folks in Crockett, how they feel today, right? Because not even 2 weeks ago, they had to shelter in place as firefighters dealt with that huge explosion and a huge fire. And now we're back here again, right? And they're again looking at firefighters trying to clean up what was a very serious fire this morning. And again, with these winds, they can't afford to leave it alone. So they're going to stick out here overnight and watch it.
Yeah, guys. And Crockett's not the biggest dot on the map, but the people who live there have certainly had a rough go of it. I appreciate you having that perspective on there. And I'm struck by the visual as you just turn your camera around and you're still in eye shot of those oil tanks. So I got to imagine that is the reason they want to really jump on these hot spots. You were showing us a video. It's kind of, mucky work to be up there, in the brush that's all smoldering. But they sure don't want any more embers flying out of that thing and posing a threat to something like that.
I'm sorry, Brandon, one more time. It is so, ask me again, it is
that
so
is
windy
the wind
here.
story
I
out here.
am
I'm just
between
saying
being blown away and losing my hearing.
Yeah. It seems like you were saying they're dedicating a lot of resources to try and avoid any of these hot spots flaring up a new fire. And I got to think part of the reason for the concern is that you can see the oil tanks from where you're standing.
You know, it is possible. They have not mentioned that, but you know, certainly, if you're out here and you're paying attention, the fire, the way that it's moving, right? It could get to the oil tanks, right? But it also could get to the homes, which is equally as important.
Right.
It shut down the highway earlier, right? And these winds, you know, part of the reason why I can't hear you on my, I almost lost my hat the other second ago, which is unimportant, but still, this is how windy it is here, right?
Right.
So that is why firefighters are going to camp out here, because you just don't know how the fire is going to behave when it is so windy and dry and cool.
And one thing I appreciate about what you were saying about how many folks are going to have to stay on the ground there is this is the sort of thing that's going to really strain our resources here in California. Every time you have a spot fire like that needs attention from several crews to just sit there and patrol it overnight, those are folks who can't go off to the next fire that starts. So have you talked with any firefighters about, you know, just feeling stretched thin in any way, or have these guys were they on the other side of the bridge, you know, earlier today before they had to scramble that way?
I'm sorry. Bridget, I apologize.
She's not going to be able to
I think you're talking about firefighters and the strain on resources.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Anastasia, thank
appreciate
you.
your time. Thank you very much.
Anastasia Bolton, who is in that Crockett area.
It is going to be rough out there for a while.
She and her photographer did pan off, and we were able to see some traffic starting to move on Interstate 80. What was that?
We want to go to Natomas next and check on I-5.
Okay.
Because it sounds like we might have some good news to share with you up that way.
Let's see what pops up here. We are live in breaking news, and Giacomo Luca has been along Interstate 5, northbound of Sacramento.
Yeah,
and obviously,
between Sacramento and the airport.
Exactly. And that area was on fire. And that area was on fire a couple of hours ago. And so obviously we're still seeing, this is video from when this happened. This was in the Del Paso Road exit off of I-5 north of Sacramento. And we're going to take it to, as we continue with our live breaking coverage, we're going to take it back out to Giacomo Luca. Wow, okay. We were talking about cars that burned. There you go.
That's right, Walt. You can see 3 cars completely destroyed. We talked to the Sacramento City Fire Chief just about an hour ago now. He said what happened was this fire kicked up, and then there were a couple of cars that caught fire. People had to run from their cars because of the conditions that we are seeing and that we've been seeing for at least the past 3 hours now along Interstate 5. So you can see, obviously, not a very pretty sight. The fortunate news through all of this, the city's fire chief tells me nobody has been hurt, no homes have been damaged, but of course that is just an awful sight to see right now. And look what we're still seeing here along Interstate 5, up and down. It's like a ghost highway with the exception of the crews that are working to mop up. But Randy, walk with me over here. You don't see this very often. I'm going to look just to the left and right because we have seen fire officials as well as CHP law enforcement driving up and down the road, but how often can you walk across 5 lanes of traffic without really even having to look both ways, right? Right here, over here, we have fire crews that are doing some mop-up work, so they're spraying in the center median. That is where a lot of the heavy fire really stuck around, but compared to about 2 hours ago, what we were seeing then, complete smoke all the way across the highway, things have really calmed down. What haven't calmed down are the winds. Of course, the firefighters could get a break with that. I hope these winds will start to simmer down a little bit, but for now, that's not the case. But fortunately, they are out here. They're trying to mop up, get some water on this median where those hot spots are, and hopefully in the next couple hours or so, they can make sure that this is safe, clear it, and get everybody back up and down the highway, because this is certainly something that is unprecedented in terms of something that's happened recently. And if I was going to the airport right now, I would definitely be worrying because it's completely shut down.
So Giacomo, I know we have impressive live capability, but it doesn't take you to another dimension. So CHP Valley is telling us I-5 north and southbound both reopened. Obviously, that does not appear to be the case where you are standing. Have you heard any word about a status change out there?
Well, so I don't know how good you guys can see, at least from what I'm seeing compared to what this camera is seeing. But Randy, if you start at the Arena Boulevard sign. You see this down here, straight north, okay?
Yeah.
A little green sign right there. There are vehicles that are being pushed up and over, and if you just follow my finger, and they're being, I don't know exactly what artery that is, but it looks like it's taking folks onto I-80.
So they've got a detour.
Westbound, right, towards San Francisco. And let's not give people too much of a jolt, Randy, but bring it back over here towards me, and we're going to show you due south, okay? Right up and over the highway where all of those fire trucks are standing or sitting right now. Cars are being allowed onto I-80 eastbound, but that is just an exit ramp, right?
Yeah.
To switch up and over. But in terms of actually the underpasses between I-80 at the Interstate 5 intersection, that remains closed down right now.
Well, you know, CHP does a great job, and we're looking at their tweet from 22 minutes ago saying that both lanes are open, and clearly where you are, Giacomo, that's not necessarily happening. There are diversions which have been in place for quite some time, but it could be that any minute now, officially, both lanes will be open for business, and you'll need to be getting out of the way.
Yeah, you'll want to scoot when that happens. But in all seriousness, have you seen any sort of tamping down of the activity with the firefighters out there? Does it feel like they're getting close to the point where they might have all those hot spots knocked down?
Well, you know, I'd like to think so. The smoke is certainly dialed down. I'm not seeing a whole lot of flames, but obviously with the wind, and even if they spray water on it, if they don't get every small nook and cranny, it only takes a little bit to pop up an ember and get things started back up again. But you know, when I talked to the fire chief earlier, he said it's going to take, and this was about an hour ago now, he said it's going to take at least 4 or 5 hours to make sure that mop-up is completely clear, because firefighters, they're not going to leave the road until they know for sure that it's clear, because the worst thing that could happen here is that they leave, another fire sparks up, and then people get stuck in traffic with a fire on the interstate.
Wow. Yeah.
And then cars start burning up like what we saw over there. Just 3 could turn into many, many more, and I know we don't want that to happen.
For sure. Giacomo Luca, we know you'll keep an eye on it for us and let us know when they actually do have those lanes flowing. We appreciate all of those updates. They've obviously had slow going up there, having to platoon water from the city up to where you are. Giacomo, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, Giacomo, thanks. Again, if you, he touched on it, if you're going to be heading to the airport and you have a flight, you better get moving. If it's like a 9 p.m. flight, you're going to be lucky to even make that one.
We'll hope for better news, but
we do. Okay, you are watching continuing breaking news impacting millions across Northern California. We're continuing to follow it for you. I-5 is closed, was closed. That's what we're almost figuring out in Natomas.
Sure looked closed.
It sure looked closed, although any minute now we're told it may be reopening. So there's that. That's Natomas. Because of a fire along the highway, 3 cars burned. Everybody's okay. 80 was closed near the Carquinez Bridge in Vallejo because of a major fire. Closed for a long time. This is the Kincade Fire in wine country. We want to tell you about this. This is the major one in Sonoma County, forcing thousands out of their homes. Historic winds plus extremely dry fuel triggering the largest PG&E power shutoff in state history. Millions of people in the dark today. Started last night. They could be without power for days, Brandon. The governor has declared a statewide emergency today to get extra help. We do have a lot to talk about in this current situation with fires virtually everywhere at 3:32 on a Sunday afternoon.
So let's start off talking about this Kincade Fire in Sonoma County. The latest update, you're seeing some of those numbers on your screen from CAL FIRE, shows us the fire is at 30,000 acres. We've got 79 buildings destroyed, and they only had 10% containment. Now, this is the funny thing about these numbers is they update them twice a day, so this thing is continuing to grow in these high winds as we go throughout the day. 180 1,000 people forced to evacuate because of this fire. And the evacuation zones, if you look at the maps, they go from wine country all the way to the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah,
and
indeed.
you're talking about a bunch of people in that zone that don't have power right now, which adds a whole other dimension to this mix. You don't have necessarily reliable communications. Your cell phone may or may not work if you've been able to charge it at all. So this is going to be a tougher road to hoe for people who have to get out of the way of this fire, should they be, get that knock on the door telling them to evacuate. So it's one of those things you do not want to mess with that information if it comes to you. If you're told to evacuate, now is the time to go, because the winds today, absolutely out of control.
Yeah, if you choose to stay in your home, that's on you. First responders are not going to go in and put their own lives on the line if you've ignored a mandatory evacuation. It's that way with fires, it's that way with hurricanes. Okay, Lena Howland has been in Windsor, where there have been some spot fires there. Windsor is north of Santa Rosa. Lena, what's the fire situation where you are?
Well, we are near the Foothill Regional Park right now in Windsor, where we are seeing several fire resources staged up right behind me here. We have at least a half dozen fire trucks ready to go right up against the Foothill Regional Park. Why this area is significant is because it butts right up to a residential neighborhood. We've got hundreds of homes out here. That is why we are seeing quite a few fire resources, just like this truck coming through. They have been staged in this area for the past hour or so, as we have been told the fire is heading this way. As you can see here now, the wind is starting to pick up. If you can see it in my hair, you can see it in the trees right next to me. That is causing the fire to push this way. The good news is we haven't seen any flames yet. We have not seen any structures in this area physically on fire. Those firefighters are doing a great job with their structure protection efforts. We've seen them out here laying hoses. We've seen them out here even spraying their water. And we've seen them staged up in this incredible line right behind us here. At least 100 resources. We've seen them on every single block in this neighborhood near the Foothill Regional Park. That's kind of what we're seeing right now. It's also incredibly hazy, very poor visibility. And where we are at now, the smoke has gotten a little bit thicker, and you can definitely smell the fire much more here than where we were at just about a half hour ago off of Vinecrest Road. So that's something to give you a good idea of what we're seeing, what we're smelling, what we're hearing out here. A large presence of fire resources in place, ready to go just in case the fire does end up heading this way. I spoke with the fire chief earlier, who we have been working on dealing with this coverage with, and he told us, you're kind of on your own. You have to be ready. You have to have your car on and parked out of the way, and parked in a way where you can just jump in that car and go, just in case the fire does head towards our direction. So that's what we're seeing out there. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm going to go ahead and toss things back on over to you.
All right, Lena, thanks for the update. We'll continue to check back with you, but obviously some terrifying times there for folks in these neighborhoods as we've had spotting come off of this fire. Really quick before I let you go, have you heard reports of more of these spots hitting in any of the neighborhoods in and around where you are at this point? Or at this point, are they able to really get a jump on everything that's been sparking up so far?
At this point, it seems like they have really gotten a good jump on some of these possible spot fires. We have not seen any flames yet in this neighborhood where we are at, right next to the Foothill Regional Park. But I think that's because these firefighters have taken a good proactive approach to just be staged and ready to go in the event that the fire does reach this residential neighborhood.
Yeah, well, and one of the things you were telling us earlier, it just seems like they've got a massive response. So if there's any good news here, it's that they've had time to scramble a lot of fire engines from all around the state to get where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just to point out, we have one fire truck right behind us from Burbank, from Southern California here. They obviously traveled quite a long way to get up here and help our firefighters here in Northern California. We've seen firefighters from all over the state, just an incredible number of fire resources here to help in this small community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was the thing when I was up in Paradise watching it burn down. Everyone's going, where are the firefighters? But the fact is, that was a matter of a couple hours before that town was in harm's way. You, on the other hand, are dealing with a fire that's been burning for days, and this is what it can look like. But that's what people really need to be thinking about, and that's eye-opening. Thank you very much, Lena. I appreciate it.
Okay, Lena Howland, who's in Windsor, which is north of Santa Rosa. Again, we've got crews all over the place because there are issues all over the place.
Sure are.
You know, you have Natomas, you have Grass Valley, we have the Kincade Fire, we have Vallejo, which was a huge story earlier today with I-80 closed down in both directions.
Yeah, sticking with the Kincade Fire, this is one that means a lot to a lot of people. The iconic Soda Rock Winery, this is in Healdsburg, burned down this morning, overnight, really. We had flames that were just racing through it. The thing is a total loss at this point, and it's just really, really sad to see. And it echoes back to what we saw in Sonoma County in 2017, where we had a lot of wineries lost there.
Yeah, we heard a lot of people, you know, we had wedding receptions there, or, you know, bachelorette parties, and everybody stops by there, and it's a well-known place, Soda Rock Winery. Carlos Herrera was there this morning. When he was there early this morning, he was able to walk through there because the fire was out, it was over, it was just smoke. And, you know, he was a little overcome at times by the wafting of the residual of this fire. But, you know, this is from last night. There is absolutely nothing that's left of that fire. That whole thing has been put out at this point. So what's left is just smoke. And so they're going to continue to look at that and make sure that doesn't spark up as well.
Also tracking a fire in the Grass Valley area.
All right, we're hearing about a fire in the Grass Valley area. This is near Sutton Way and Idaho, Maryland Road. CAL FIRE advises it's 8 acres. It's still burning. That was the last update we had. This one started 2 hours ago. The Nevada County Sheriff's Office says there are no evacuations yet, but they want people to be paying attention just in case, and they're asking people to avoid the area where this fire is burning as they work to get this one under control. Again, yet another fire. This is Grass Valley, Sutton Road, Idaho, Maryland Road, and obviously crews are out there doing everything they can. If that one gets away from them, obviously that's not going to be good. You've been up that way. It's like anywhere else, completely dry and a lot of fuel to burn.
Yeah, mixed forest. You know, you've got oaks, you've got you know, pines and firs, and all the works right there. And that is not an area we want to see go up. It's why you have so much of the Sierra foothills in that shutdown area today, is because they're really worried about the fuels there. CAL FIRE likes to say that, you know, they keep the vast majority of fires under 5 acres. This one's obviously topped that, but 8 acres, that's a win on a day like this.
It is. Obviously, these are wind-fueled fires. Monica checking in now with some of the gusts. Oh my goodness, look at Alpine.
Right, I know. As far as the gusts, yeah, we're seeing 100+ mile per hour gusts. Alpine Meadows here, it is 107 miles per hour. Jarbo Gap and Pulga, now that's very close to where the campfire started last year, right about this time. 70 mile per hour gusts there, as well as 67, 64 in Georgetown and Vacaville, about 58. I will tell you, in general, most of these wind gusts are on average about 55 to 60+ miles per hour. A little closer to where that Kincade Fire is burning, we've got 70+ mile per hour gusts going on there. Taking a look at the foothills near Forest Hill, 58 mile per hour wind gusts. So again, they vary. It's not like we're seeing gusts that are very similar to one another. It depends on the canyons and the ridges that you're in and where those winds pick up. Here's a look at the broader view when we take a look at the wind gusts. And the purple is going to indicate the very strong gusts, close to about 60 to 65 miles per hour towards the Coastal Valley area, close to 50 for parts of the valley, and in the 30s, but you saw some 50+ mile per hour gusts in the foothills. So current winds still quite strong, anywhere from about 30 miles per hour in the valley, closer to 40 towards the coastal range. And I know the foothills hasn't necessarily gotten in on the really, really strong gusts yet. It's coming, especially overnight tonight. Now you can see this smoke plume coming in off of that Kincade Fire smoke. Look at that. It's just pushing right off the coast here as we're moving through the afternoon. But we are feeling the effects of smoke, unfortunately, through the valley because of that Vallejo fire. So just be aware that we're still getting some smoke moving through the region, most of it heading off the coast, but it does trickle in through the valley. Not to mention we had the fire along I-5, which was really pushing some thick smoke our way. Red flag warning in effect until Monday at 11 o'clock, and that Extreme wind event, that's going to continue until 11 o'clock tonight with gusts at 60+ miles per hour. This is critical fire danger we're in. Now let me take you through the timeline of what we're expecting with the winds and how they're going to unfold. And the one area that I want you to concentrate on is in particular the foothills. Again, here we are at 6 o'clock tonight, and the big focus area is going to be in the foothills. That is going to be a sustained period of time. We're not talking about a lot of this letting up until very early tomorrow morning. So still at midnight, look at this. This extends all the way north of I-80, south of Highway 50, all the way down to Yosemite, with a big area affected by 50+ mile per hour winds. And we're talking about this lasting until about 7 o'clock in the morning. It'll shut down pretty much as quickly as it ramped up. I heard from a lot of people that were emailing in say, this came out of nowhere. Not that we weren't warning you, but it was just, whoa, we went from nearly calm conditions to things that were being knocked down with about an hour. All right, so we're right back at it. It looks like Tuesday at about 5 o'clock. Here's the reason why. One low pressure system moving out. Now, this was a near historic event, but another one's moving in. It's going to be just a little bit east of us. So we are expecting strong winds once again, but not quite as strong as what we have seen in the past 24 hours. So the extreme fire danger is going to let down just a little bit heading into our Monday. But then we start to look into our Tuesday forecast, and unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be back with us. It's a classic setup here. Here's what's going on. We've got the low pressure system that just shoots right off the coast, and that really creates that strong offshore flow. Gusts 35, 65, over 75 miles per hour. You saw at Alpine Meadows, 107 mile per hour peak wind gusts. Up north, they're called Diablo winds. Down south, Santa Ana winds. Now, I want to explain this just a little bit deeper here. Okay, so what we have is this air that's rising, cooling. As it descends down towards the valley, it's warming and drying. Okay, and then we have the valley. Then we start, again, riding up a smaller range, the coastal range, and then warming and drying once again. That's where we get those really strong winds. And unfortunately, a lot of damage as well. This is a fallen tree. Fairfield fire. That's very close to where we have the compression, the warming of those winds. They can reach upwards of 70 miles per hour in a very short period of time. So you can see the damage that is created here. This was in Natomas as well. Lots of damage. I bet a lot of you have damage like this. Trees down, branches down, fences down, a lot of cleaning up here by the time we get to tomorrow. This, of course, is Soda Rock. We've been covering the Kincade Fire quite a bit. If you have the opportunity, please send us those photos. Let us know where and what kind of damage you're seeing. Weatherforce@abc10.com, or you can text us our number, 916-321-3310. So again, got a lot going on here. Wildfire 101, different types of vegetation burning differently. So you saw some different types of fires along I-5, the Kincade Fire, the Vallejo, and anything that's burning, is going to burn in a different way. Coastal mountain range, we've got heavier trees. In the valley, predominantly grass. Those will burn real quickly, real hot. And unfortunately, we've got a lot of grass with the wet year that we've had. Eastern foothills, we've got a combination. We've got grass, brush, and oak. So we do have those trees. And then, of course, 147 million dead trees statewide in the sequoia, the Sierra, the bark beetle, infesting so many of those trees during our historic drought not too long ago. So unfortunately, there's a lot to burn, a lot of wind to spread it as well.
Yeah, a lot going into this, Monica,
Yeah,
and
very much so.
We're not going to get out of this anytime soon, not till we get the first rains, which I'm assuming not going to be for a while.
No, in fact, we go into another similar wind event, not quite historic like this one, by the time we get to Tuesday afternoon.
Okay.
But still bad and could have shutoffs, so we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's take a moment for those of you just joining us to take our wide-angle lens here. We got breaking news that's affecting millions of people all over Northern California, really. We've got I-5 closed last time we checked on it in Natomas because of a fire that burned right up to the highway, burned some cars. People had to run away.
Yep.
I-80 was closed. The Carquinez Bridge was surrounded by fire in Vallejo because of a major fire there. That has since died down. We're going to check on some issues in Vallejo, though, that we're learning about now. Major wildfire in Sonoma County continues to be the biggest one. That's forced thousands of people out of their homes. We're talking north of 100 180,000 people that are in the evacuation zone. We've got historic winds, as you were just hearing about from Monica, extremely dry fuel, and we've got the biggest PG&E power shutoff in state history. Oh, by the way, while this is going on, roughly just shy of 3 million people in the dark because of that power outage, and that could go on for days of blackout conditions. The governor has declared a statewide emergency because of all of this to try to get us extra help, and we've got fire crews from all over the place working in Northern California right now. So there's a lot to talk about. PG&E, like we said, turning off power to 940,000 customers. That's really power meters. You multiply it by 3, it gets you close to 3 million human beings that are affected by this all over the state because of this high fire danger. This is the outage map. Those dots are showing where the shutoffs are. PG&E started turning the power off last night in various counties. They've added several over the night and into today. They are telling people to be prepared to be in the dark for at least 48 hours. So strap in, folks. You're going to be in this for a little while. PG&E's biggest preventative power shutoff ever. This is happening because there frankly is not a lot of faith that their system is going to survive an event like this without sparking a fire. And there are already questions about that Kincade Fire in Sonoma County and a PG&E transmission tower there. Now, keep in mind, we were just explaining this. A customer is not a person. We're talking homes, apartments, businesses. So millions of people without power and going to be without power for a while.
Okay, we are also following that fire that started at 9 this morning in Vallejo near I-80. The highway was shut down on I-80 for hours in both directions right around the Carquinez Bridge. This is what was happening. We were told the fire started shortly after 9 a.m. Road closure almost immediately after that. As you can see, video that we got in from, we did an all call. People, if you're stuck in traffic, send us your video, and we got plenty of that. Vallejo has declared a water emergency. We're just getting this because of the fires and the fact that when the power is out, they can't treat water. So the Vallejo Reporter is telling us that the emergency declared Sunday means outdoor water use is prohibited. Residents are asked to reduce indoor use such as bathing and toilet flushing. Joanna Altman, assistant to the Vallejo city manager, says the preemptive blackout ordered by PG&E to try to prevent wildfires means the city doesn't have access to well water. She says before the blackout, water use rose as people rushed to start storing water, which made the water problem worse. The CSU Maritime or Cal Maritime Academy evacuated because the fire was burning right down to their campus. And it got real. Yes, absolutely. Got very close to homes and to the other side of the bridge. Crockett had a fire as well, more than 150 acres, but Cal Fire tells us evacuations in Crocker have been lifted, and I-80 in both directions has since been reopened. But this is earlier. You can see the smoke and flames. This is the toll plaza. There it is.
Yeah.
There's the toll plaza.
Everyone recognizes that. He ever drove between here and San Francisco.
Right, and look at the fire, how close that was to the toll plaza. But, wow. So take a look. One of you just sent us this video, I-80 Vallejo with flames and smoke. So if you were stuck in traffic on 80 and you have gotten to a safe location, which we assume you are now because 80 has reopened in both directions. But if you have video that you shot, you got a story to tell, we would love to hear your story. So give us a call.
That doesn't look like it would be fun to see out your passenger window.
Heck no. I mean, you know, you saw what happened on I-5 north of Sacramento in Natomas where 3 cars burned.
And that was just a little grass fire.
That was just yeah. And so you wonder how Vallejo 80 area, Carquinez Bridge Toll Plaza area, where the flames being so, you wonder why there wasn't more of that.
Yeah, and this is really driving home the point. You know, we've been talking about these high wind speeds. It really doesn't matter what it is. If you look outside your car and you see something that grows from the dirt, it can catch on fire today. That is just the reality we find ourselves in. The grass is going to drive a lot of it at these lower elevations because it's had all summer and fall to cook and turn into dead grass, which can, you know, if you got 50-mile-an-hour winds, you got a 50-mile-an-hour fire if you're in grass. And then, you know, all bets are off when it starts getting into trees and brush, which you are seeing in the hills around Vallejo.
Absolutely.
Right there.
Okay, I got a direct message on Facebook about something going on Rancho Cordova. Let's take you to that one. Vegetation fire. All right, we don't have the picture yet, but we do have the information on that. There was a vegetation fire near Highway 50, Matherfield Road in Rancho Cordova. Our crew on the scene is telling us the fire is basically out, but there was smoke going. It was on Coloma Road, I believe, in the Rancho Cordova area. So people are also keeping us up to date. We can't, we don't know everywhere where these things are popping up, but we, again, thank our viewers for letting us know where fires are popping up in their streets and neighborhoods.
Yeah, and that's just it. It can be down here in the metro area, it can be in the foothills of the Sierra, it can be all the way out to the coast. I mean, there's really nowhere in the sound of our voice that you can't have this problem right now. We do want to go out to I-5 in the Natomas area where we had I-5 closed in both directions last time we checked on it, and our Giacomo Luca has been out there for us, and we had a little bit of conflicting information because we had a CHP account on Twitter saying, hey,
it's open.
We've got it open,
but it wasn't.
Our reporter's standing in the middle of the road, and as we take a look here, it's still closed.
Yeah, if Giacomo's out there, and I know we're going to go to him again, but obviously this is kind of the scene we've been seeing for several hours. It looks like traffic heading into Sacramento is moving at least. It wasn't moving at all for most of the time. But again, traffic that you see on the abandoned road, which is I-5 northbound, heading towards the airport, that's not happening. And we did see a tweet from CHP Valley Division about, 40 minutes ago that said both lanes were open. So we're not sure if that means both lanes are open with a diversion. But certainly, there's a lot of pictures from I-5 at El Paso. That northbound lane of Interstate 5, it doesn't look open to me. So I'm not sure what open means, but we're going to continue to follow that.
Just posed the question a second time to the Twitter account for CHP Valley.
Okay.
Hopefully we can get better info about what they're expecting. The good news is, as you look at this picture, not a ton of smoke going on. In fact, you don't even really see it in the median where we had those posts that hold up the guardrails were smoking because all the grass lit them on fire. So they've been smoldering for hours and hours. We did hear, however, from Sacramento Fire that they expect this to last, as many as 3 or 4 hours. That was all of an hour and change ago. Giacomo's actually on the ground there, and he's got a better set of eyes on this than we do. So Giacomo, with that, what are you seeing, and are we any closer to getting people flowing through there?
Well, from the looks of it, it does appear that for the most part, the mop-up efforts, those are starting to dial down. As I was showing you earlier, there were firefighters in the median. They were taking trucks, tankers full of hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water, and they were spraying all along the median because it was on fire. That right there is a Caltrans truck, likely grabbing any of the roadblock material. So it looks like we have good news, at least for drivers who have been pushed off of both I-80 and portions of I-5. This 1 mile stretch where we're standing right now along Arena Boulevard, I do think that they're going to be opening up the roads soon because, again, firefighters have pretty much cleared the area with the exception of the entrances and the exits, as well as the smoke that we were seeing earlier. It's no longer here, but the winds are sticking around.
All right, Giacomo, so we're looking to get open there really soon. In the meantime, for those who weren't with us before, right behind you are those cars we've been talking about, and obviously it was a little bit hairy earlier when this fire was burning. Even though it's just a grass fire, you don't tend to think of really long flames. It certainly was enough to do some damage.
Well, that's right, Brandon. Here, we can actually walk a little bit quicker, and we'll move up here, and we can show you a little bit closer what we're seeing. 3 cars here on the northbound lanes of I-5. Well, they got burnt up. The fire chief tells me what happened was this fire, however it started, it came in. You can see that all along the shoulder here, it's all burnt up. People were in their cars. The traffic started backing up. Cars caught on fire, and then people started running. Look at what we're seeing right here. A front door, a back door still open, and on this car back here as well, the driver's side door still open. Likely people literally running for their lives as they get stuck on the highway.
Wow.
So certainly a frightening situation. The good news, nobody's hurt according to Sacramento Fire.
Yeah, you wonder sometimes, you see this from a distance, but you never get a real up-close look at what the interior of an automobile looks like when it's completely singed like that. And so those 3 cars were, I guess they must have been all together at that time. Were they on the road, Giacomo, or were they off to the side when they burned? Did they just push it off the road?
I'm not 100%
Okay.
sure on it. What I can tell you, though, is you look at the tires. I've got a friend that lives in this subdivision just across the way here, and she was telling me that she could actually hear from that subdivision right there, those houses, the tires popping, right, as the fire tore through. But again, not sure whether or not these were on the side of the highway, if they got pushed off. Likely got pushed off by firefighters.
Yeah, as they try to get that road reopened. All right, Giacomo Luca along Interstate 5. And again, if you're heading to I-5 northbound towards the airport, you have a flight, you're going to be challenged to get there. So hopefully that thing is going to open soon. But when it opens, there's going to be a huge backup. All right, in the meantime, we're going to take you to more live breaking news. As I mentioned, I got a direct message on Facebook. It said, hey, my neighborhood, there is a fire going on in Rancho Cordova off of Coloma Road. And obviously, it appears to be a house fire. So don't know exactly what happened with that, but we are told near 50 in Rancho Cordova that the situation is handled. You can see a firefighter standing by the garage area. It doesn't look like anything is stressful or imminent at this time. So it looks like that situation, which could be just any type of a house fire, not connected to everything else we've been talking about today.
It's really hard to say. I mean, people have houses that back up to vegetation, and you can have these things go both ways. You can have house fires turn into a whole wildfire, or you can go the opposite direction, obviously. The good news is this one looks like it's pretty well under control at this point, and in the mop-up phase, so that's great news for us right now. The reality of this is any source of flame or spark is something to be concerned about with the winds that we've got today. I mean, just driving here today, you could just see dust devils off the side of the road. Anywhere you go right now, it's, just batten down the hatches. And, any fire we can show you where they're getting things under control is good news in our book today, because we don't want these things growing.
Yeah, okay, so we've been covering a multitude of things today, so fortunately that's been out. But obviously, we don't want to ignore the Kincade Fire, because that's the big thing. It's been burning since Wednesday night, and containment, at last we saw, was only 10%. We were focused on that, and then after that, we had the situation in Vallejo, which literally blew up, which closed down I-80 in both directions for hours.
Yeah.
Huge story, not just fire in Vallejo, but the traffic backup that affects everybody. And then obviously the next situation in Thomas with I-5, both lanes shut down north of Sacramento. So obviously when you have fires that involve not just people, you have major road closures. So that became another huge story as well. So we're continuing to cover it all, and you're going to be on this post for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be with you throughout the day today, because frankly, these winds are going to be continuing to give people all kinds of problems all over our viewing area. 180,000 people under evacuation in that Kincade Fire, by the way, in Sonoma County. And the evacuation cone, if you look at it on the map, it goes all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So, I mean, this is not a small area we're talking about evacuating. The good news on that fire is it popped up a day, more than a day ago. So we've got the time to scramble resources. The fire truck can only get there as fast as it can drive up the highway.
Okay, more news coming up at 5 o'clock with Brandon Rinneman, Anana Rachida, and ABC10.com.
He's Walt Gray.